Okay, so to make the transition to this next panel, we are going to continue some of the same themes. This is all about transformation. This is all about change culture. This is all about change management. And the discussion that we had with Kathleen and with Shauna, interestingly enough, some of the same issues, some of the same challenges, some of the same solutions, the fundamental solutions or the methodology that supports it, I believe are going to be coming up in this discussion. Now, I have had the pleasure of knowing all of these individuals on the panel for maybe a week, maybe 3, but I will tell you that the calls that we've had in preparation were instantaneously active, alive, vibrant, intelligent, and action-driven. And for any of you that know our broader group, those are the keys to success. It's not just talking about, here's the problem. It is how are we going to affect change. So I am going to pass the mic, not literally, but I'm going to pass the speaking to Ed Craig that most of you know, but also if you don't, to say that he leads our Emergency Communications Advisory Committee, and he gets to work with these great individuals on many different occasions in many different forums. So he will MC the event, although he tells me that it's not going to take a lot of work because once you get them started, they're rolling on along.
Yes. So
thank you.
So thank you, Maria. I made the joke with Maria beforehand that I literally could walk up here and go, and that would be the end of my role in this. But you've heard a lot of talk about reform, and we talked earlier, and I'll give the panel in a second here a moment to introduce themselves because I couldn't do this panel's justice with introductions. But we did talk about a little bit, and you've heard the theme of reform, and we were talking earlier saying, if you look at the 911 centers or the PSAPs, or there's many names for them now, and I'm not sure which is the most correct one anymore because some people even say they're fusion centers, but there's an evolution going on, and that's really what's happening, at least at the call center level or the 911 center level. So before I get too far into that, let me actually take a moment and let each one of you take 15, 30 seconds, whatever's appropriate, to introduce yourselves to the people out here. So we'll start.
Good morning. My name is Tina Bonetta. I'm the director of Aurora 911 in Aurora, Colorado. I have been in the 911 industry for almost 25 years. Began as a dispatcher and worked my way up. And I am happy and proud to be a part of an organization right now that is changing and evolving and broadening the spectrum of services that we connect our community with. And really excited to be here today with my great colleagues.
Hi, good morning. I'm Monica Million. 24 years into this space. You'll see us all kind of joking with one another. We've known each other for many years. I, too, started out as a dispatcher in Western Colorado, managed a center in Grand Junction. Then I worked at the state level in Colorado. I served on the NENA Board of Directors for 5 years. And I've really had a great opportunity in my recent past to work in the international emergency number services, engaging with how the rest of the world is providing that service. And recently returned from Bogota, Colombia, auditing what they call their C4 or their call center. So happy to be on the panel and excited to share the conversation with my colleagues.
Hi, I'm Brad Flannagan. I'm the operations manager for Pitkin County Regional Emergency Dispatch Center, which is we manage a little town called Aspen, Colorado. So we have a very different challenge dealing with the higher socioeconomic region. One of the things that I've been doing in the 15 years that I've been there is in public safety is start challenging the status quo, start looking at how we can do things differently. And I chair for the National Emergency Numbers Association the Future Think Committee, where we start looking 5, 10, and 20 years into the future to forecast, to research and report on what might be possible and what are we doing to get there. And it's not just technology, it's not just AI, though if you talk to me about that, I'll talk all day. It's about what are going to be the solutions for these centers that are going to work. Is it operations? Is it management? Is it policy? Is it equipment? How are we going to fix that and build to the future?
Good morning, I'm Jessica Lose. I work with the Lincoln Police Department as the 911 communications manager there. It is where I started my career over a decade ago. I have spent 8 years in the university realm. And as I play into this, I guess, on this panel, these are a lot of industry peers that I look to as strengths within the industry in areas that I do not necessarily have. But with that, I have developed a passion in this career, and it's the reason that I stay in it and will retire from it someday. It's the people in this industry. It is the people that go through the challenges in this profession. The people are my why. And so for me, this is very much how do we keep those people involved? How do we inspire them through the involvement when we ask them to do more with so little?
Good morning. My name is Tamara Bell. I have been in this career field for 24 years, started out in Augusta, Georgia, have never seen the Masters Golf Course, although I have passed by. I am currently the director of the Southwest Regional Communications Center. We're Southern Dallas. We're in Dallas County, and we have a regional center. And I'm excited to be working with my team, of course, but also a council and city manager who is looking to me to see what needs to be done. And so they've empowered me with that. And so I'm excited about that. It's a little daunting. However, it's my job, it's my duty, and I'm here for it. So looking forward to answering any questions and talking about what we're going to talk about here.
All right, thank you all. So before I delve into letting you all run loose and crazy, I always want to take an opportunity. For those of you that don't know, I am a volunteer first responder, and I always want to take an opportunity to say thank you to the folks that work in the 911 centers, because it's often the police and the fire that you hear getting the credit, but we don't get to do what we do if the people here don't do what they do. So thank you. Please take that back to your staffs. I know you don't get enough acknowledgement. We were talking right beforehand about some of the awards that are being given out now in public safety. They're starting to finally recognize the dispatchers that are associated with that, and I think that's long overdue. So just a personal thank you to you all for what you do. Evolution, change, challenges. So I'm going to open up this by kind of a broad question of saying you're facing a lot of challenges and a lot of change that's going on. One of the challenges that everybody talks about is staffing. I want to kind of set that one aside because we know that, we've talked about that. But can you talk about some of the other challenges you're facing, whether it's the 911 edicts or the data changes or the changes in process or any of those types of things? And I'm just going to, at this point, joke and say, go.
I'll start out just by saying knowing what technology is available for us, understanding the technology that's available to us, and also being able to afford it. Now, I know I said I have a council who's looking, and the city manager is looking to me for these ideas. However, it still costs. And you know, while they're used to putting a lot of money in different areas, now you have to put it in the 911 center. It's not just a police department. You have to, you know, buy them nice cars and nice shiny trucks for the fire department, but it all starts in dispatch, and that's the hub. And so we need all this wonderful technology that the public think is available. And you know, sometimes they'll tell us, how can Uber, or Lyft know exactly where I am? But you mean to tell me you don't know where I am? No, ma'am, I'm sorry. I know about where you are, but I cannot get exactly to you. And so those are some of the things that we're trying to educate the community with, and my leaders with, to let them know, hey, we need these things. How can you help me attain these items monetarily?
Yeah, I think to kind of sum up what Tamara's saying is really the biggest challenges facing 911 right now are data integration. How do we process the volume of data that is now available to the public that is not available in most cases inside the 911 center, but the public's expectation is that it is, and then how do we pay for that? And frankly, you know, pre this panel discussion, it's really about an evolution, and the evolution has to include our business model, our funding mechanism, and our modernizing our workflows. And until all of those three things come into play simultaneously, how do we make that happen together? We're going to piecemeal and probably not be successful in meeting the citizen where their needs are at.
Well, and let's look at something really simple, right? How many of you have a smartphone in this room? Every single one of you. How many of you assume that text to 911 is something that you can do automatically? There are a lot of places in this country where that hasn't happened yet. This technology should have been implemented in 2001, 2002. But because of the fear of the organizations, because of the inability to get the right monetary values to just get the funding to implement it, it became the stonewall. And we said, we don't want it. We're going to get overwhelmed with it. We don't know what's going to be happening. So simple technologies that everybody just assumes is possible are just now being adopted nationwide. So it's not only the funding piece of it, but it's the acceptance of what we're going to be doing and how do we integrate that into what we're doing. One of the things that I see all the time right now is the IoT, right? The periphery of all of these different technologies coming into the center without a good user interface. That we're all, using a different text to 911, a different phone system, a different computer-aided dispatching system, another periphery that gives you a better map so you can find locations with more accuracy or the same accuracy as Uber. Doing all of these different things, you have 37 logins. Right now I have 32 logins when I start a day if I'm going to sit on the console for my dispatchers. That's insane. That makes it almost impossible for them to be successful just on the onset.
It is that public perception, that nation, as a nation, that we've put on our 911 centers. They're not 911 centers anymore. The expectation is we're real-time crime centers. Real-time crime centers, we can do it all. We've all seen the TV shows, right? So when you pick up the phone and you dial 911, that is what you expect is happening. As a partnering first responder, whether you're a police officer or a firefighter, you're expecting the same thing. So those expectations are not just coming from our community members, but they're also coming from our partners. Because of that, we experience large retention issues. I can't say that it's always necessary at the hiring, it's at the retention. Right. Because in doing so, we have failed. We've given them this assignment as a nation, right? We know what we expect of you, we know what we want from you, but we have failed in giving them the tools to even start the homework. And when you sit in a center and you see other large centers or other centers that do have the funding, because they're recognized as a partner in their community with other first responders, other centers just start to lose individuals because they don't see the value in themselves. They're not getting the same recognition as a neighboring individual doing the same job, because it is a professional job and we are partners. So the first and foremost is recognizing the partnership of 911 professionals with firefighters, police officers, EMS. It's an equal partnership. So for me, the huge barrier that comes from that then is the retention and the value. Therefore, long-term, we really, really fail in serving our communities at a high level, or the high level we could be, because we never get the opportunity to build up the careers of those telecommunicators.
So well said, Jessica. God, you stole my thunder. I got plenty to talk about, don't worry. So just taking, riding on her coattails there for a second, I want to say that is so true, that our professionals are equal spokes in that public safety wheel. And so how we approach professional development, how we empower our professionals with the tools necessary to be effective and meet every member of our community exactly where they are is fundamental. I would just say from a local perspective, technology ways or how I would describe challenges and barriers right now. The Denver metropolitan area is rather large, and the city of Aurora shares a very large stretch of boundary with the city of Denver. That particular boundary is also a very high crime area and a low socioeconomic area. So technology, cellular technology, location-based routing. We are a jurisdictional Swiss cheese, and so there's always the opportunity for you to bounce through the tower into the wrong communication center. And so one of those barriers to service is our ability to immediately field that call, no matter what jurisdiction that person is sitting in, and be able to get the information to the responders that need to respond to the event without having to transfer a caller and place them on hold. That is something that we've dealt with in such just a maddening way, and that we're working really hard to try to remedy. But just for example, one of our vendors, I won't call them out, but I will say that we have a cellular vendor that will not engage location-based routing for us unless we write a letter and we send it to every neighboring jurisdiction, and we get them to sign off on the letter saying they understand what we're doing and it might impact them, and we have to send it to the vendor. we can't just send one letter. Every jurisdiction has to write the same letter and then disperse it out to all of their neighboring agencies to sign before it can come back and that location-based routing can be put in place. That's unacceptable. We should not have to play these kinds of games when seconds matter, when lives are on the line. And I would say that we have to overcome that, be able to meet people where they are, to know where they are, and be able to work collaboratively with our neighbors to deploy resources immediately when seconds matter.
Yeah, and just to follow on, in the Denver metro area, the incident she's speaking to actually resulted in somebody's death, and the cellular provider is completely unwilling. And while then they want a letter from each of the surrounding jurisdictions, then those letters go into their internal business approval processes. So who knows how long that's going to take. And sadly, somebody lost their life. But that's still apparently not enough. There are many, many, many examples of this all over the country, not just in our little jurisdiction. I think one of the other things where we can talk about, when you talk about metropolitan areas in particular, where you have multiple agencies responding to events, the fact that none of our resources really interact with each other, interface with each other, unless we pay a vendor, $150,000, $250,000, is completely ridiculous. And that is something, when I worked for a short time in the private sector, that talking to company leadership, you have got to change your business model. We are not serving the community well by doing this. There has to be a different way and a different methodology for how we are able to interface our technologies so that we can dispatch one another's resources and provide that information.
That's a very interesting segue into kind of that overlapping problem that we're all facing. In the Denver metropolitan area, or even in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, how many public safety answering points do you think you have? When you call 911, you think of this massive call center that's answering for everybody, right? That's not the case. In the Denver metro area, how many PSAPs are there? 15 in one city, for different little boroughs, for different areas, for fire sometimes is dispatched by a different place than the police is dispatched. And there's, part of that federal challenge is that each state manages their own public safety. And then each county or each municipality then manages their own communications, so that we are, by funding and by mandate, we are separated. So then we're trying to build all of these technologies that can talk to one another. And the companies are running on the same thing. Well, if I make something that every agency in Denver can use, that's great. But now I've sold it once. But if I take and I sell this to 15 different agencies and then upcharge them to communicate between these two, we've got a good business model there that we're going to make a killing off of this. And that's the challenge overall for what all of us are facing, is this interoperability piece.
And if I can just add to that, speaking back to that value aspect, is I personally, at the agency I'm currently at, am a part of a police department. So I think that a member of my leadership said it best two weeks ago on the value that they place on 911 centers and the technologies we need. I think it's awesome that the police department owns the 911 center. So again, that communication on not being seen as a partner, and then when we do go to that leadership and we are asking for the technologies necessary, again, to meet the expectations on both sides of the phone and radio, it's looked at as that's a great question, that's a great ask. Maybe in the next fiscal year, this year, we need new body-worn cameras. I don't negate the need for new body-worn cameras, but the tools and resources that we need to place at the console for our telecommunicators.
Well, and talk about how many PSAPs in Nebraska have CAD.
We have over 90 counties in Nebraska, 40 of them currently operating without a computer-aided dispatch system.
So they're running with Excel sheets, tracking officers and responses.
Yeah.
Pencil and paper.
Right.
Pencil and paper. And I don't know how many in this room are familiar with the Denise Amberlee story. It's definitely something that, unfortunately, we are still looking to as an example of why we just need to give people the basics at the console to meet the expectations. So that's just that. Sorry, I digress. But that is my ask on the technology side, is just recognizing, again, the equal need, and that the critical resources at the console are no less than the critical resources needed to perform any first responder role.
We have in my surrounding cities, regional cities, smaller agencies just outside of my agency. And the state of Texas, I've been awarded a grant. Our center, well, most communication centers in Texas have been awarded a grant through the state of Texas for Next Generation 911. However, some of these smaller agencies did not apply for the grant, and they're saying you must, go Next Generation. You must be live on Next Generation 911 by the end of 2024, and we're trying to get that extended through 2026 because. Equipment and how long it's taking to get equipment, So with these smaller agencies who did not apply for the grant, and I'm asking them, I've reached out to them, why didn't you? Well, I went to my city manager, I went to this person, and they just kind of, shooed me off. And so everyone needs the education, even if you're a smaller city. They need to know how important it is for our 911 centers to have what we need to operate. We're public safety. That call, like I said earlier, that call starts with us. If we drop the ball, everyone is going to drop the ball, and it's going to result in a death. And I always say, we don't want to be on TV. I do not want to see you on the news, and it's true. And I not try to scare them, but just make it real. This can happen if we don't have the proper technology in place, if we don't have the proper amount of people in place.
So let me jump in 1 second, and I don't want to stop, but there's been reference to Next Gen 911. You've referenced text to 911. You've referenced the need for technology. I understand that at a national level, text or Next Gen 911 is well defined, but what is your perception on Next Gen 911, and what does it really mean at the call centers? Because we could talk about, okay, you have to have EZNet, you have to have the different things, but you've brought up prime examples here where I think that whole perception of what is the future of 911, what is it going to look like? So what are the challenges there, and how is that, what are your perceptions of what is really Next Gen 911?
I'll start. And so really, what it boils down to, because I think we describe Next Gen 911 as this like mythical creature that no one can really articulate or visualize. But what it really is giving our professionals the tools they need to meet people where they are. So whether that is the ability to bring in multimedia when someone can't describe their scene, but we can assist them, or still photos as evidentiary for a property damage crash, maybe where someone drove away and they want to make their report. But even more so, at the City of Aurora, our school system teaches children that speak over 160 languages. Aurora, Colorado is unmistakably the most diverse city in Colorado for that reason. And so our ability to recognize, auto-detect language, and be able to offer translation through text and through voice and transcription in a way that allows us to meet people where they are, to understand what is happening and connect them with a resource without having to wait on hold for a language translator through Voyance or Language Line. That is also very expensive, but is also suffering from a lot of the pandemic staffing issues. Right. So it's impacting our service, and we need to bridge that gap. So that is, when I think of Next Gen, it's about getting ourselves to the level of service that we understand our community deserves and that we want to provide, and being able to just interconnect those tools in a way that makes us effective the first time.
Yeah, and I will not describe it as eloquently as Tina did. Frankly, it's just simple modernization of the 911 network. Our network is 50, 60 years old now, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't meet the public's expectations of where their technology sits. And until we actually transition completely to a next-gen environment, we won't be able to use these tools because the architecture will not support it.
Yeah, we're simply bringing our phone systems up from the rotary dial or flip phones up to the smartphone level.
Yeah, for me, next gen it's this conglomeration of all the things, right? All the stuff that you wish you could see. You know, how many of you guys have seen Minority Report? That's one of my favorites, just looking at the tech. Because it's like,
He
hey,
wants a heads-up display, people.
oh, it's going to happen. I can do it.
He wants a lot more than that, but
But you know, it's finding ways to use technology to help people. And at the end of the day, that's what next gen is it's giving us the pipe to start helping people with technologies that already exist. And a biggest challenge that we've all kind of touched on is that a lot of places don't know that it exists or are afraid of it because they're so buried covering a console. You've got operations managers that are working floors that they don't have time to ask for the grants. They don't have time to research the technologies. And that's where we need to start working on how can we help them? How can an institute like IJIS do the research and provide it to these smaller PSAPs at a, hey, we've got grants that we can already give you, or there's a cheap way to do this. You know, we got voice to text, the first iteration in our center, simply by plugging an audio cable from our logging recorder into a SAM module and into our CAD system. And it gave us just simple, you know, Microsoft enable, that it just started giving us text. That's a simple, free solution that nobody even knows about.
I personally am just going to share some excitement about NG911. Yes, the tools and the technology and the resources, but I'm excited for the new landscape that it will create for 911 professionals. I'm already seeing just such an immense opportunity to collaborate further with our community members, which has just been outstanding. On top of that, I think it's starting to open the door to welcome other strengths into the 911 world. Right. For so long, a 911 telecommunicator has had a very, very basic outline definition of what that individual needs to do and come with to the role. Next Gen 911 is really redefining that, and it's really reaching out and showing others your strength is needed in 911. Your strength is going to contribute to our staffing and retention issues. Your strength is going to make sure that our community is not receiving second to anywhere else.
Can I just
Say it.
Okay, and Brad's going to know this story. So Brad used to work for me. So let me paint a picture of a specific example of how a community's expectations of what we can see and do, internal police department policies, our agency, much like Jessica's, we reported into the police department structure. We were not allowed to have Facebook. We were not allowed to have TVs. I mean, all of these things that the general public took for granted, we had access to. We had a small child kidnapped in our jurisdiction, a 9-year-old little girl who was stuffed in the trunk of a car. We were able to, our dispatcher, who now really has become this investigator, this data analyst on her own outside of our policy, and frankly, I just took it to the chief and said, if you're gonna discipline us, I'll take the heat because she brought it. She brought her A game. She did Facebook on her phone because at the time I did not disallow phones on the center floor, which many centers do, and she investigated through Facebook searches, and we found the guy, and we rescued the little girl out of the trunk. But these are simple policy things that the public has no knowledge, that we can't, that some police departments and some fire departments don't allow their 911 center to even access social media tools because they make the assumption that we're going to abuse the tool.
If I could be respectfully outrageous, I would just like to say that all of this discussion points us in the direction of understanding that we all need to take a collective step back and redefine the organizational governance model of how 911 is governed. No offense to police or fire or anyone who is taking care of a 911 center under their organizational chart, but what I would offer is that just like I, as a 911 professional, do not have the entire landscape and understanding in my mind to be able to deploy fire resources to a structured fire and manage the scene, I would offer that our law enforcement and fire professionals do not have the industry understanding and knowledge to be able to navigate and make decisions about the future of 911 or how 911 is managed. We need to have 911 professionals and subject matter experts at the helm of these centers. understanding the needs from a first world perspective, right? Like I've lived this life. I understand what it's like to be in the seat. I know what my people need. I understand the gaps of service between us and our community. And now I have the knowledge to put to use and make decisions that set us in the right direction. And it's time for us to rethink what that governance model looks like. And frankly, like as a director of a department that has become an independent entity, I am up here with the police chief and the fire chief. I report to the deputy city manager, and we manage, our IT department manages our E911 fund. So I am not answering to an authority board of user agency chiefs who are telling me how to spend my money and make my planning. I'm doing that on my own because I'm empowered to do that as an intelligent subject matter expert who's empowered to lead her people. And so I'm just here to say that that is fundamentally the core root cause of so many of our frustrations. And if that can change, there's nothing stopping us.
Exactly. Trust us. You hired us to do a job. Allow us to do our jobs. I have my own IT staff within 911. So I'm not sharing the city's IT who has to go department to department to department and don't have the time to focus solely on 911. We're our own little city, really. My little 911 center treat us like our own little city. And so I have the experts in my department to go out and get the right, find the right solutions for us technology-wise and do this and do that and tell us how much it's gonna cost and then help me budget for it. And so I appreciate that, but like I said, trust us, allow us to do our jobs. You hired us, trust that I'm gonna hire the right team because I don't wanna look crazy. I wanna make sure I'm making the right decisions as well because I don't want you to get rid of me, I need my job.
So is it fair to say then that there's policy change that needs to happen not only at the local levels, but even at the state and potentially at the federal levels? Because we talked a little bit offline about some of the changes that are happening at the center levels. You made a reference to cell phones weren't allowed, or they are allowed, and in your case, thankfully they were. But it really, and I'm going to bridge this a little bit and bring it back around, because there is an expectation that you have certain things, and the public expects that you have certain things, and there's certainly a disconnect between what the public expects and the public services. So can you pull that thread a little bit more maybe on, other things that the public is expecting from you and the challenges that are associated with that? And I'm gonna throw it out a little bit bigger bomb and say, and how is that also affecting the people you need to hire? You just talked about, you have an IT staff now. Brad, I know you and I have talked about the fact that maybe it shouldn't be a keyboard in front of the dispatchers today. It should be a phone that they can use, a keyboard that has two thumbs on it, because I know my kids type a heck of a lot faster with their two thumbs than I ever could on a keyboard. So I want to kind of bridge us into where do we need to go? And you can take it from a policy, you can take it from an interface perspective, but I want to pull that a little further.
I'll start at the high level, Brad, and then you run with it, buddy.
Deal.
That is fundamentally, I started out with, our entire business model has got to change. Yep. And that means from the governance structure to the way we're managed. We are subject matter experts. This field has become much more complex than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and oh, heck yeah, more than 20 years ago when I started in this business. And we have to be allowed to procure, make our own decisions, in charge of our own destiny, because we know the subject matter expertise that's required to do the job. And until we change the governance, that is not going to change.
Well, when we talk about subject matter expertise of our line level staff, right now the biggest eliminator of applicants for my agency is typing speed. They have to be able to type at least 35 words a minute just so they can get in the door, keep up with people, and be able to just track what's happening, because everything they're doing is transcribing into bullet points of what is this person trying to say so that we can get the information to officers quickly and effectively. Typing is the #1 thing that I eliminate people for. So how do we get rid of that? And it's, how do you change that definition of what you're looking for? I want somebody who can multitask, who can type really fast, who can be decisive, who can interrogate and do something with that information quickly, right? Well, what if we change that model? What if we change that from, I need somebody who can interrogate and type, to, I want somebody who has the want and will to help the people in our community. And I'm gonna give them the technology to start doing that effectively and smoothly. So for instance, instead of, ma'am, hold on, I need to get that information down, it's a, okay, tell me what's happening. And voice to text will give that to you. And maybe along the way, it starts saying, okay, this sentence or this paragraph means this and can bullet point it for you. Then you're having your telecommunicator clicking on it and putting it into the notes. Or it goes one step further and it says, I identified a couple of words in there that might be key. What if you ask this and this and this? And start giving real-time heads-up recommendations to those dispatchers. So now, instead of being a typer and an interrogator, they're being a problem solver.
But that requires AI and ML.
It requires a bunch of AI and ML.
I mean, but I agree also, Brad, that he said we're hiring the right people and we can teach them the skill, right?
Sure.
Hire someone that wants to stay, who wants to serve their community versus weeding out that person who hit 29 words versus 35 words and they were the right person. You can teach that. They're not in there just typing. We're really not clerks. We're really not, we're first responders. And so we're trying to get the information in fast. And like he said, we have our children who text like this, 1,000 words a minute. I'm not exaggerating. Maybe I am. But hiring the right person, the one that's going to come and stay, that way we're not in this revolving door, this cycle of hiring and rehiring and retraining, and just taking the time away from actually working on the floor.
Right. Well, even if you look at the dispatch side, you got these dispatchers who are responding and typing on radios and doing all this stuff. What if they were able to problem solve the whole time? Instead of hiring a dispatcher or a call taker, what if you hire analysts? That they're watching the processes happen and making sure they're accurate. That is going to change the model of the people we hire and the ability to broaden our net. Because we are stuck in this myopic view of who we have to hire because of ability, where we want to widen that to, I want the most diverse staff I can possibly have because I can get different skill sets out of each person and make a team that is amazing.
The demographic that we've been thinking of who would be a prime target for recruitment is the gaming community. So why aren't we at every Comic-Con? And why are we not designing technology in a way that empowers those skills that people have? And if you think about it, that process is very much like gaming because you're strategizing and it's intelligence-based. So I think that, we just watch the world around us to see who the next prime candidates for this career path could be.
Well, and how many of you guys have seen a CAD system? Most people in the room, it's almost always a table, right? It's lines on a computer. It looks like it's from,
50-year-old technology.
Yeah, it looks like it's from an Apple II. And it comes out and you're interpreting lines. But what if you can make all of that map-based? What if you make it GIS-based? What if it looks like the Grand Theft Auto map that they're used to playing on anyhow? And now they're clicking on an icon that now highlights what agencies are going to respond and gives you the closest in AVL or automatic vehicle location. And they're making real-time decisions based on visual input rather than going through a table.
Back to Tina's example and even yours, Brad, the DoD did exactly the same thing by requiring their contractors to build devices that look like a PlayStation gaming controller because that's what the kids that were coming into the military were used to. It is no different than the kids who are coming into our profession are used to gaming. We ended up at, I don't know how many screens you have at Pitkin, but we ended up at 9 screens in Grand Junction. And so a gamer is used to all of that visual input and all of that data coming at them in a manner that is not table-centric. And unfortunately, our technologies are still table-centric.
So let me pull the thread a little bit more then, because you've branched out now into DoD, the gaming community. We talked a little bit at the start of the crime centers and all of that. So there was the previous conversation talked about don't miss lessons previously learned. And I hear you saying, hey, we're our own entity, we're our own things, but I hear common threads to some of these other areas. So where do you think is a good place for you to partner with to make sure that you don't repeat problems of the past? If we could bring many people in this room up and talk about when they set up a real-time crime center or a fusion center, here's all the things that went wrong. So are there places that you feel would be helpful to aid you as you, I'll say, go on this evolution to bring us back to where we started, but maybe not have some of the pitfalls that have been experienced in the past, because you all have said you don't have the budget, people, or time to have those failures.
But there's ways to do the very things that Kathy spoke to in her experience in bringing in a diverse group of people in your community to talk about how we're serving the community, bringing that understanding. I told poor Tina, she was sitting across the table as the two ladies were speaking on the panel before, and I'm like, oh my God, my head just exploded with 5 million ideas about what we can do in Colorado, and I'm going to run with it, and here we go. But it's fundamentally the same conversation. I think Maria spoke to it at the introduction of this panel. We have got to start engaging. The biggest problem with 911 is the public doesn't know, number one, who we are and what we really do. Right. And they have no clue of the state of 911 in this country, let alone in their own community. And we are responsible for engaging them in that conversation. So I'll start that off with that.
Yeah, we have a citizens academy that comes through annually from each. So our 911 center consists of 3 cities: DeSoto, Cedar Hill, and Duncanville. So we have a citizens academy that comes through annually from each city, about maybe 30, 35 people, and then we have a Leadership Southwest. For the area of Dallas that comes through, actually are coming through tomorrow, that we're trying to educate them on exactly what we do, what our needs are, because your community members, come support me when you see something on the agenda that I've added to the agenda for council. Come, say your part, come and say, yes, she needs these things so I can get my item passed. So we can have these things into our agency. But I think that's one of the biggest things, educating. And if we can stay out there, I have a public education team. If we can stay out there in their faces, the more we're out there, the more we're educating, I think the better we are in terms of connecting with the public in the community.
I have to say, in the last 9 months, we are a center that is also understaffed. I know there's a few of us out there. So it's been creative, but just letting people inside the 4 walls. I know that sounds very simple. I know that sounds very trivial, but as Monica is talking about, Tamara talking about, it is the community members that are going to drive the changes and the purchases that my leadership needs to make. And I'm already seeing that. We now have the video overlay services at the console, a tool we desperately needed to serve our deaf and hard of hearing community and to serve individuals that we were losing during that language line wait, that hold, because there's just a cultural barrier there that felt unsafe in that pause. Nobody should ever feel unsafe when they dial 911. So to bring those individuals into our 4 walls, to show them what happens at a console when they call 911, to be very comfortable with that and identify their areas of uncomfort with placing that call in the past has been huge. Public education, all those things are great, but I need the staffing in order to get people out there, because the mission is definitely number one. But yeah, let down the 4 walls, be open and transparent.
Well, and part of that being open and transparent is, just like Ed was talking about, what are we looking for? What are the things that have already learned some of these lessons? Our job as a 911 dispatcher, every time you tell anybody that, they're like, oh my God, it must be so stressful. Yeah, that's a key word in our industry. Post-traumatic stress, resiliency, building those things is something that we really have to focus on. But what's another world that is super stressful? What is another job that everybody thinks of when they're like, oh my God, that's so stressful? Air traffic control. They've got robust post-traumatic stress and wellness and help, and we've never even looked at it as an industry because we're fundamentally different. We're 911. We do things our own way. And breaking down those 4 walls and start accepting that maybe other people have already looked at this. Another place where people think about the same kind of job that we do in a very less dramatic way is contact centers. So when you're talking to credit card companies, when you're talking to the airlines, when you're talking to these people that are processing millions of calls a day, how are they doing the technology? What are they finding that works? What are they finding that doesn't work? I love sitting in on these panels because their technology is so far past what we're even dreaming about right now, because it's not life and death. And so they haven't put up that wall of, well, we can't do that because it might kill somebody. And so being open, dropping our boundaries, dropping our defenses, and saying, what are these other people doing and how can we allocate that to what we are intending to do is a big part of that.
Let me pause for a moment.
Yes, because if nothing else, I want to jump in this conversation.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's questions. So we've been running up here, and there is a whole group of people out here.
Yeah,
so.
everybody
come up
all of
to
us
the
are
mic.
thinking of different ideas. So a couple of things. Obviously, the themes of education are there, right? The community, your city managers, even your PDs, if you're within the PDs or whatever agency you may be structured in, the development of a business case to educate those decision makers, right? If you're talking to your leadership from the city who hasn't bought into this concept, you need to be able to say, look, here are all the challenges we are experiencing. This is how you could save. This is how you could benefit. Here's the quantitative, here's the qualitative outputs. And frankly, these are areas that I'm identifying and I know we can help. And I mean we. Everybody in the room is going to help. And then the question that I have, though, is from a governance perspective, in order to propose the path forward, I need to understand the current path. For most, or traditional, let me back it up. Traditionally, you had PSAPs were under the PDs, right? And maybe FD, but rarely city, right? And then you also made reference to the notion that every city, every municipality in certain of your states then want each of their own. So by implication, I'm thinking that you do agree or support with the notion of consolidation, because you think obviously too many, not everybody spending all this money and not even getting effective things. So then what is your proposed governance goal look like? Are you looking to be centralized and consolidated within regions, cities, or under the state? Because then I have a follow-up question. And then I'll give the mic to anybody else who wants it.
Let me start and then you run. Consolidation is a must. I don't care what elected body I have sat in front of in the last 15 years. I have made it very clear that 911 centers, the infrastructure is very expensive and the human resource is exponentially expensive just because of the revolving door we have. And it only makes sense. We have a fiduciary responsibility to spend taxpayer dollars well, and we do not do that because of all of this siloed attitude about how every chief has to have his own center, and that's just BS. That's number one.
I would just add to that, so not only consolidation, but to make accessibility to work continue to be easy for our professionals, I would say it's consolidation in place. So if it's just a consortium, an agreement between jurisdictions where we're sharing the technology,
Right.
but we're fiscally responsible for our portion of that sharing, and then we are, maintaining our own facilities, or we are supporting remote working and whatever pathway that the technology can lead us down to meet our employees where they are, so that we're retaining and being efficient. I think that's ideally what we want to do. We don't necessarily want to close centers, but how can we work together on the same platform? That's
and
fundamental.
I would almost see that as the path to consolidation, right? Because obviously it's not going to be a switch, and it's not going to be overnight, and it's not going to be easy. But I would have seen your version or your description as a potential path to then a consolidation. And the consolidation in a prior life, that's exactly on the private sector what we used to do.
Right.
And it would be consolidation of the technology, the process, the people, the facilities, the telephony, the radio communications, all of it. And we actually did a 10-year plan. One of the colleagues that I worked with isn't in the room, but we did a 10-year plan for what was Northampton County, Pennsylvania. And we took, I don't know if it was 47 different sites and brought it down to one. And at the end, was it a fight? Was it a struggle? Absolutely. But could they not debate with the numbers? We didn't lose the employees, and the misconceptions of consolidation is what would need to be part of that education, right? Because it's not about losing the employees, and it's not about losing jobs. It is about providing them more education and more formality and professionalizing the group that you're looking to professionalize. So just if you could speak to, and I just want to get to from a governance perspective, even in your model, then all of those currently existing centers would collaborate, would share technology, et cetera. But who would their governance board, because you'd want to have reps from each of those, so they each have a stake in the game and they're all at the same table, who are they talking to? Are they talking to the county or are they talking to the state? Because somebody above them has to approve this. In Colorado. It can't just be everybody holding hands.
Yeah, it totally depends.
So it depends. And frankly, you have 6 states. Ours is one of them. That's a home rule state. And good God, don't tell them that the state's going to take it over, because they will all just
Flip out.
leave. Right. They'll leave and run. But I think you could do it through an IGA style structure, legal structure, that would then require the entities to maybe pay into this consortium, if you will, or this collaborative governance
You are
structure.
definitely rocking the boat, and I'm totally with you. I think it's phenomenal, but that is a lot of education. And again, I say that we can help you. This is governance model. This is everything. This is phenomenal, and it would have great value. And in some ways, the issue is where would we start, because we want that to be the model, and then the case study that people understand and hopefully multiplies.
Well, let's start with a little story. So my agency, very small, very wealthy. One of our fire agencies, our taxation district, is $24 billion worth of land value. It's higher than Manhattan per acre. A trailer in a normal trailer park is $1.4 million. I can't pay enough to have my people work anywhere near my center. So what we decided to do was break our center into small satellites that we were going to push into other jurisdictions. And what we realized is that we could start, by solving a staffing problem, we were starting to interoperate, that we could have a dispatcher here and a dispatcher here that are doing the exact same job, communicating over Google Meets, cheap and free, right? And they're talking as if they are in the same room and not changing the level of service they're providing to their community. What it does is that's a basis of a model of, okay, so we've got 15 PSAPs in the Denver metro area. They can still interoperate. They can still interact with one another with a different governance model or with a different administrative model that you now have, instead of a director that reports to a chief in each one of these agencies, that you can make it where one overall governance body can run all of these things at once in a small place. So like in Nebraska, where you have all these ultra small PSAPs, you don't have to shut the doors. You don't have to make people travel 30, 40, 50 minutes to a mega center. You can connect all of those and change the governance model itself.
Agreed on all points.
I think the other thing you have to look at, and I told you I dropped this bomb at one point in time during the discussion, it's not just what you're being asked to do today. It's what you're being asked to do tomorrow. We haven't even touched 988 and the fun that's bringing for you all. But that's a whole nother center model. And Maria, to your point, that's a federal initiative, but it is impacting, all of these things. So I think there's some branches there, and I'm not going to let you go on that one because we said we were going to let people ask questions if they have them. So if there's no questions, I'll let you go. But otherwise, are there questions from the audience anywhere?
So I know in other parts of the public safety industry, the conversations I've had with chief deputies and whatnot have really said that there needs to be a generational change in leadership, right, with a set of expectations going. Are you seeing the same thing in the 911 side as we do in data transparency, that really just need the next generation to come in and has a completely different idea of what service is and what,
I would say, yes, that's a very general statement, but I don't disagree with that 100%. And the old think, the traditional think, is what is really blocking the progress and the evolution of what needs to take place in the industry. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think you hit it right on the nail on the head. We historically, and just again my experience in coming up through 911, served under leaders who were leaders because they were leaders and they were doing the things, and the recognition came back to them. It's doing us an absolute injustice at this time. We can no longer tolerate leaders that look at it as themselves. Leaders need to understand they are not working for themselves. They are absolutely working for that team. Each day they wake up, it's to walk into that building. Your why needs to be that team. Your why needs to be their why. You need to be able to sit, and sorry, I'm a big Brene Brown fan, you need to be able to sit in that arena next to them. You need to be vulnerable enough to sit next to them and say, you know what? I know you're not strong in this area. I will help you with that. In return, I am going to be vulnerable and expect the same from you. We just don't have a ton of those leaders. Leaders like that are sitting up here, and they are across the industry, but it breaks my heart to hear those that exist that are out there for themselves.
Or at least have the leader open-minded, open enough to accept another person's suggestion on something that may impact the center in a positive way. I know when I feel like I can no longer lead my team, I'm going to get out of the way and allow someone else to come in and take over. I don't want to, stifle my time. I don't want to keep them where they are just because of me being selfish and I want this position as the leader.
Right.
No, I'm smart enough to move out of the way and let someone else come.
We all have a shelf life, and we owe it to our teams to be consistently, constantly cultivating our successors. And if we're not doing that, we're absolutely failing our team. It should be the number one objective for every department head.
Well, and even looking at those chiefs and those traditional leaders, right? It's a how do you get their mind shift? One of the best ways that I do it is I look at my chief, or I look at the sheriff, or I look at somebody, and I say, who are we going to be hiring in 5 years? We're going to be hiring today's 8th graders in 5 years. And they're like, holy crap, we got to change something. It's like, yeah, we do, and I'll help you do that. And that starts broadening their perspective because they're thinking about how it's always been. You know, the people that I have today, when I grew up and the way I did it was the best way to do it. Well, most of them have kids, and it's talking about your kid's going to be a cop. What do we need to change? And they're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
So I was recently out in Las Vegas and was introduced to the principal of a part of the Clark County Public School System, Veterans Tribute Academy. They're putting together high school curriculums for everything from ROTC to 911. And through a grant, through cooperation with the city of Las Vegas, the backup PSAP is in this school. So they've incorporated into their high school curriculum an actual live simulation environment. So your thoughts, my question is kind of thoughts on, and you hit the nail on the head, it's the 8th graders, it's 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Thoughts on kind of incorporating 911 and what 911 folks do into the curriculum of high schools, because that is the up and coming folks that are sitting under the headset.
We are starting exactly that when school starts back in August in Dallas Independent School District with one school. We're starting it with one school, Roosevelt High School. They already have the simulator, like you stated, in the school. They're just needing instructors and 911 professionals. And so we will start that this coming school year.
Yeah, Brad knows this. We started a program in Mesa County in Colorado with the university to try to, Arapahoe County had a similar one at their community college, and really starting to educate the kids and the college students that this was another professional career path. And I had hoped to take it to District 51 in our jurisdiction for the high schools, but we never got to it. But fundamentally, because of the way the job has changed, our recruiting methodology has to change. And it is exactly that. We are really now data analysts. So what does that look like? It doesn't matter that we have a typing keyboard or all of those other things. Those are just tertiary tools that we may not need anymore. But I need your mind. I need your problem solving skills. And those are very relatable and teachable things.
Well, and not even to that, like even what we were teaching, it was a criminal justice program that I got to be an adjunct professor. That's awesome. And we got to prep cops. The people who wanted to be law enforcement, that were going through post and they were doing all these things. Same as ROTC, same as those young law enforcement explorers. It's let's make them aware of what we do, so when they get into this field, that they've got a partner that they can work with, rather than a tool that's forced upon them.
We do have one high school in the Denver metro area that has a simulated dispatch and a 911-based curriculum. And so that is a wealth of opportunity, and I'd love to see it continue and more schools participate. But I would also say, just listening to Brad speak, if we're trying to shift the paradigm and there's a disconnect within public safety, even understanding our roles, then I would offer that instead of a 2-hour ride-along during an academy, why are we not spending some time intentionally immersing new law enforcement officers, new firefighters into the 911 environment for an extended time to make them better partners for us when they hit the field? And I think that also helps to increase the awareness and maybe breaks down those walls of disconnect and misunderstanding about who we are.
All right, I'm sure we could talk forever, and I see the hands in the back of the room, but I'm being told up here I have to stop. All right, one more. So Maria, I'll let you decide which one gets to answer the question, because there's a couple hands back there.
So my question is kind of related to mental health and data related to it. So I hear a lot about the need for technology that's missing in many of your jurisdictions and in the country as a whole. But I also heard a little bit of tidbits about the data that you guys are missing as well. Well, when we're talking about health data, a lot of that is protected by HIPAA, right? So, I'm kind of curious on the specifics of what you need and to kind of bring it home and kind of tell a story to kind of understand the context of this. I had someone who was very close to me, in Portsmouth, Virginia, who was, taking medication for his mental health situation, right? And one day he noticed he was basically having a bad reaction to it, and it built up to a situation where he was ready to commit suicide. So instead he called 911, and was basically explaining to him, look, I'm having a bad reaction to medication. Please, just bring me an ambulance. I'm like, if you can give me something, it'll counteract it, and I'll be fine. They didn't send an ambulance, they sent a cop, right? So what is going on with respect to collecting the data or obvious mental health situations? What do you really want versus what you can actually get? And how is that being communicated to the dispatchers so that you can get the help they actually need? Because they don't need a cop car, they just drop you off at the hospital and they're gonna walk to the hospital, right?
I love your question. It's such a relevant topic today, and it's actually something that Aurora has been working on intentionally for the last couple of years. So I have two things to share with you. Number one, we recognized that mental health related calls and having a police response for mental health related calls can oftentimes result in disastrous outcomes, as you have described and as we have experienced in Aurora. And so one of the things that we have done is created an alternative response model. And so through our police call taking protocols, we have a series of questions, and if we can identify through talking to someone that they are experiencing a situation like that, we have an alternative response team that consists of a counselor and an EMT. They're not uniformed, unarmed, but they operate on the police channel so that if a safety issue arises, then we can deploy assistance to them for their safety. But what that is doing, again, is just helping to meet people where they are in their moment. It is sparing our officers from unintentionally ending, in a situation that escalates, because that's not what we want. And so that work we're finding it to be very meaningful and successful, and I think that will continue to grow as a best practice from coast to coast. That is my dream for this model. But secondly, in terms of data, if you've never heard of Andre McGregor and Force Metrics, I encourage you to look him up on LinkedIn or just Google his name, Force Metrics, Andre McGregor.
Former FBI agent.
Yes, he is, and he's also a first responder. So he's been a firefighter, he's been in law enforcement, and also with the FBI. And he has developed a platform that we are onboarding in Aurora that will allow us to talk to all of our internal data. And it has an AI learning component to it, sort of like a Google search. So as a 911 professional, when I'm taking a call and I put in a name or an address, it's going to look at everything that we have in the city. And if someone, let's say someone we know, they're a military veteran, they have PTSD, or they're on medication, those hits or those keywords are going to pop up for us so that we're appropriately informing responders so they know what they're going into before they get there and not after the fact. And so I believe technology just like that is helping us to be analysts, and it's also helping us to prevent unnecessary escalation in those types of circumstances. So important.
And on the alternative response model, I will brag on the state of Texas because it actually started in the Houston metro area, and other metro areas are starting to adopt it. Denver started Denver 911, Aurora has started it, and it is wildly successful so long as there's enough staffing for the counselors. And it's a kind of a perpetuated problem, but we're getting the right solution to the citizen, and that's what's most important. And taking those, frankly, the law enforcement officer out of those really precarious circumstances that they're really more social counselors anymore than they are law enforcement. And they've been put in untenable circumstances, and it's no wonder that these disasters have happened across the country that have.
And just on the call taking side, we've all of my dispatchers, and myself included, have taken a course. I'm not sure if you're familiar with 911 Institute, Jim Marshall, EMHD, Emergency Mental Health Dispatching. Therefore, we're asking the right questions. We're communicating with the caller in a more effective way, and it's all about our notes. What are we actually entering into the CAD for the first responder to, react to or respond to? And so I found that that's been very helpful for our dispatchers. So no longer is just, oh, crazy Mr. Brown, No, now Mr. Brown, we have a connection with Mr. Brown. We know exactly what he wants when he calls 1,000 times. So it's about how we treat the caller, and what we're relaying on to the first responders as well.
Well, and what if we added one more piece of this? What if your friend knew that they had a mental health challenge, and they were willing to share that through their smart devices? That they had it on their device, that as they called 911, it already gave us their condition, what their reactions are, their responses, and it automatically relays that to all the first responders as they're en route to this location. Or we do something as simple as geofencing around certain high volume, low acuity mental health issues that when a call appears in this area, it may be this person and it may be part of their challenge. And how do we address that in a more focused way? So instead of having to make a call taker be a different kind of analyst and become now a medical professional, we're going to find tools that will help them eliminate that automatically so that they can do it more effectively.
So I'm going to stop there, because otherwise we will take the rest of it, and Maria will give me more than a subtle sign of, okay, time to stop. So, but we have talked about having a public safety summit, emergency communications summit. I think we have plenty of topics to go through. So I want to take a moment. I said thank you in the beginning. Thank you very much, you all, for taking the time. Thank you for making my job easy.